Hello everyone, my name is Alex. I'm a 2000 rated over-the-board chess player, and in this series we're climbing to 2200 rapid elo, while I'll be explaining my thought process as best as I can for your education and entertainment. Today we have another Caro Kann. In the last video, my opponent played pawn to e5, and that was a crazy game, so check that out if you're interested. But for now, my opponent goes knight c3, and we will take and go for knight to f6 if he takes back. You can play bishop to c4, the von Hennig gambit, and I have a video about how to counter that if you are interested. It's a very dangerous gambit though, but most people just take the main line and then knight to f6. And if white trades on f6, we have the Tartakower variation of the Caro Kann, and he does. White also has the option to play knight g5, which is the alien gambit, where I do not recommend the main line of pawn to h6 there. Again, I also have a video about how to counter the alien gambit, because I know loads of people comment on my Caro Kann videos, like talking about the alien gambit, and I'm like, bruv, I've got a whole video about how to counter that. So, okay, c3. White wants to play bishop d3 here, but that kind of hangs the d4 pawn because the bishop can't move with check because the c pawn is in the way, so we're not at risk of losing our queen. So pawn c3, and the main line goes bishop to d6, bishop to d3. However, I recommend the move bishop to f5 in the Tartakower because I used to play the bishop d6 line, but what I would often find is that I would just get absolutely slaughtered on the king side with this bishop eyeing the h7 pawn, and I just had a horrible time with it. So I switched to this bishop f5 move, so that if my opponent goes bishop to d3, then I'm happy to just trade, go bishop d6, get castled, and I find those positions quite comfortable. Bishop f4 is a move that I don't think I've seen before. I don't think I've ever had this played against me in this position. So I assume the idea is that if I go bishop d6, something like take, bishop d3, take, castles. If knight f3, then rook e8 check. If queenside castle, that doesn't look very good because of queen d5 with a fork on the a2 and g2 pawns. Okay, this is interesting. Alternatively, I could go queen to b6, eyeing up the b2 pawn, but I think that gets defended pretty easily. I mean, queen b3 looks fine, so I think we'll go for bishop d6. If queen to e2 check, I think we can probably go bishop to e6, which it looks odd because I've already put my bishop on f5. Why would I retreat it to e6? But I don't think it's a big deal because the white queen would be blocking the development of the light squared bishop. So my bishop on e6 is perfectly stable, and the bishop can't come to d3 because the queen is in the way. So, okay, I think I like this position. What we have to be careful of in the Tartakower, which I've learned over time, is that we don't want to trade into an endgame too early, because endgames tend to favour white, right? Like, we have these doubled f pawns, which can be good because they control a lot of space on the E and G files, right? So they can be an asset, particularly if a knight comes to f3, we control its forward movement very nicely. However, if all the pieces come off the board and we're left with kings and pawns, then this 4-on-3 for white is far more mobile, like c4, d5 creates a passed pawn immediately, than our 4-on-3, where it's very hard to create a passed pawn. Okay, bishop d3, as expected. I thought I could take and castle, and that position looked good to me. Now, after queen d3 castles knight to e2, blocking rook e8, which I'm expecting, because knight f3, rook e8 looks like a problem. The king will have to move because you can't block. Again, if castle queenside, queen d5 looks winning to me, or at least gives us a good advantage. He does go for it, but what do you do against this? I mean, you can go king b1, queen g2, knight e2, and try to attack me, I guess. I don't know if I'm convinced, though. Do I have good alternatives? Queen f4, queen e3. If I go rook e8, king b1, and then I'm not going to win a pawn. So I think I should go for it. I think I have to be brave here. Of course, white can't let me take the a-pawn. That would be devastating. So he has to deal with the a-pawn, and king b1 looks like the natural way to do that. a3 looks wrong to me, because something like b5, a5, b4 is going to open up the position. So let's nab the g2 pawn. And I just don't think white has enough firepower. I mean, okay, I didn't consider knight h3. That's interesting. Defended by the queen, also defending f2. Okay. But can't I just go rook e8? And if rook g1, queen e4, forcing a queen trade. Knight d7, if I'm allowed to. If king to a1, ensuring that I can't trade the queens. Because after queen e4, you can just move the queen, because it's no longer pinned to the king. No, but this is just... What am I missing? We just secure a queen trade. We're up a pawn. And now, although white still has a 4-on-3 on the queen side, which could be annoying in the future, we're up a pawn. Okay, yeah, no. I was more so concerned about rook e1. I thought that was the way for white to try to play for an advantage. Because after something like take, I would have to go king f8 to stop the infiltration. And then, oh yeah, I would be alright then. I was thinking knight d7 and rook e7 and rook d8, and it's kind of uncomfortable, but I suppose I always have king f8 to kick the rook away. Rook g3, though, just isn't concerning at all. Knight d7, I'm going to double up. If he doubles up on the g file, I'll just go g6. And there's no danger. If f4, then f5, most likely. To stop this from opening up the position. F3, okay. Well, I'll happily take over the second rank if you're going to let me. I suppose he wants to put the knight on f4. There's an argument to be made for playing rook to h4 to stop knight f4, but I just don't think it's necessary. Yeah, I am going to allow a rook trade, because if take, you have no way of defending h2. Also, good rule of thumb is that rook endgames tend to be more drawish when there are two sets of rooks on the board. And they tend to be more likely to be winning for the side with the extra material, which is us, if there's only one pair of rook, if there's only one rook each. Just because it's easier to create counterplay if you have two rooks, whereas with one rook, it's easier for a king to avoid perpetual checks, for example. Okay, knight f4. We could give a check, but after king c2, feels silly. We could go rook to e3, keeping the rook on the board. I think I prefer to take, and then go rook e3. Because again, it's the idea of having one pair, only one rook each, right? I only want one rook each because it'll be easier for us to win. Okay, rook f2 is surprising. I thought he was going to go rook g3. I guess it doesn't really matter. Okay, well this knight has no infiltration squares. You can't go forward at all. So, alright, how are we going to continue? I guess this king wants to come and attack my rook if it can. Knight b6 is interesting, trying to come into c4. b3 can't be played because the pawn hangs. If king b2, knight c4, pawn b3... yeah, we just get kicked out. Maybe we can go for the f5 square to try to go to h4. I'd love to go here, but then the knight is quite annoying on the h5 square. could also try to come to f5, which would be annoying. I could go pawn f5, knight f6. I could go pawn knight b6, knight d5 to offer a knight trade. I think that position is probably winning for us. We have to be careful of going into drawn rook endgames, but I don't think that's drawn. If h4, we'll just push h5. We don't want white to break up our structure. Yeah, I'm going to go knight b6. That looks natural to me. King c2, and I think I want to go knight d5. If king d2... I mean... I suppose we just retreat. And we still maintain control of the e-file. We offer a knight trade. That looks fine. Yeah, that looks fine to me. So, yeah, this is just a very comfortable position. We're up a pawn. We have better activity than the white pieces, which is a big bonus. And although our 4-on-2 is not the most mobile pawn structure in the world, it's very useful that these pawns are split. The fact that white has lost his g-pawn is far more important than if the pawns were like this, let's say. Because these pawns can't support each other. So, okay, king c2, let's go knight d5. I don't mind giving myself an isolated d-pawn, because, I mean, at the end of the day, we trade the knights off, and then I can bring my king over, and my pawns on the king side are very secure. h5, f5 will keep them very, very well protected. And my rook will just dominate the e-file, which is the only open file on the board. And, of course, if white trades the rooks, I mean, it's just going to be completely losing for him, most likely. We do have to be aware of the fact that our f-pawns are doubled, so again, it's slightly harder for us to create a passed pawn on the king side, but a 4-on-2 should be sufficient to win the game. Particularly if we can ensure that his 4-on-3 isn't too much of a problem. Okay, knight to d3. Declining the knight trade, which makes sense. And I suppose he's eyeing up the c5 square. So we could go pawn b6 to stop that. If pawn c4, knight e7, eyeing up the f5 square potentially. Looks interesting. Alternatively, we could just bring the king, but after knight to c5, pawn to b6, knight to d7, king to e7, the knight doesn't really have a good square. It can go to b8, but we just bring the king to d6 and defend, and the knight is a little bit out of play. You can go to a6, but I mean, if it goes to b4, I'll happily take it. If pawn c4 is played, I can go to f4 with the knight. Useful that our pawn is on f6 here, stopping the knight from coming to e5. So king f8, knight c5, pawn b6. If he goes to d7, we go to e7. He could come to e4. But if he goes to e4, king e7, so king f8, knight c5, king e7, knight e4. No, sorry. Pawn b6, knight e4, king e7. King d2, and our rook is almost trapped. c4 is on the way to kick our knight out. That's kind of dangerous. That's kind of dangerous. Yeah, we do have to make sure we don't get our rook trapped. So perhaps it's easiest just to go b6. b6, c4. Knight e7, knight f4. The knight has no infiltration. My opponent just offered me a draw. I'm definitely not accepting that, because this is a 2-result game. Like, either we win or we draw. So, of course, we're going to play on. Okay. Is there a specific square we want to go to? Does it matter? I don't know. I mean, e6, e7, e8 all look viable. I suppose e6, we're more vulnerable to knight to f4 coming with tempo. So probably e7. Probably e7 makes more sense. I'm expecting pawn c4. Maybe we take away the e7 square from our knight, though. Yeah, maybe. Okay, well, knight c7, I suppose, is going to be the move, then. If my opponent offers me a rook trade, I don't know, that looks dubious to me. Knight there. Okay, I didn't see that move, but I don't think it's a big deal. Pawn c5 looks pretty good to me. Because if take, take, knight d5, take, take, rook d7, the pawn can't be defended. So we'd be winning. Yeah, we'd be winning that probably. If pawn c5, knight c6... That's more interesting. So maybe rook e6 is the way to go. If pawn d5, take, take, rook d6, you can't defend. If rook e6, king c3, if pawn c5, pawn d5, I can take with check. So we win. I think rook e6 is the way to go. By the way, if you're enjoying this video so far, please drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it. Rook e2 looks interesting, I have to say. Because if I trade the rooks, I mean, I have to push c5. And I have to d5. Oh no, sorry, the knight's hanging. Knight c6. Hitting a7 if I take and take. He does go here, yeah. Oof, this is difficult. I could go rook d6, but what about rook e7? I can take with check, but like... King here. If I go c5 and take, if I take, then he takes my rook, and I'm losing. Maybe I can go for the immediate c5. If take, I can take back. c5, he doesn't have knight c6. If rook here... Knight takes. If d5 I take the knight, he takes my knight, I take back, I should be winning. I think c5 is the way to go. I don't think we really have another option. If c5 and something like knight to d5, take, take, rook d6 is going to be good. Rook e7, take, 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 that looks fine. Yeah, this is what I was saying about the 4-on-3 for white being far more mobile than my 4-on-3. It's much more difficult for me to... Sorry, my 4-on-2. It's much more difficult for me to actually create a passed pawn on the king side than it is for him to create a passed pawn on the queen side, because the path is obvious. Right, c4, d5 is the obvious plan, which is what he's going for. I didn't consider taking. Do I trade rooks now? Take, take, take if knight c6. Pawn a6. What if I take back and he takes me? Knight e6, knight c6. Pawn a6, knight b8, pawn a5, knight c6, pawn a4, pawn b3, take, take. I suppose our king can probably make it in time. Take, take, take. I don't know. Does it make a difference if I take the rook or if... I think I should take here. Because I think I want my knight on e6. Now, I don't know if I want my pawn there, because theoretically it makes it easier to create a passed pawn. Because I undouble the f-pawns. But after take, take... So if I take on e6, knight comes to c6 to attack a7. Pawn a6. let's say, what if knight e7, just king f7? That's not a problem. Knight a5, trying to go after c5 with knight to b3. Pawn e5. Knight b7, knight e6. I think that's secure. And then I can create... Yeah, I think I should take like this. Because it's just going to be way easier for me to create a passed pawn now. Like, I just have to go e5, f5, e4. For example. And I can create two passed pawns quite easily. These two beat this one, and these two beat this one. However, it's a bit of a journey to get to both. Okay, knight c6. Well, pawn a6 is forced. And the knight has limited movement. Can't come to any of these squares. It goes to a5. Okay, so it's going to go after this pawn. So I think e5 is forced. Because I need the 6 square to defend. I think this hole holds the situation on the queen side. Yeah, so he doesn't go for it. Let's bring our king up. King here, king here. I don't want any infiltration. If knight over, I can go king to d6 to defend. That should work very nicely. And then I can even push f5 to get rid of his king. I think this should be very good. Okay, I didn't consider that move. Oh, that's strong. I completely missed that move. Point is, I'm taking away the e6 square from my knight, and my king can't go to d6 to defend. That's really smart. Oof, that's really smart. Okay, that's very annoying. Maybe I just... That's a really smart idea from him. Could I have done anything else? Maybe king e7 was the way to go. But if king here, king here, king here... I mean, I can't allow the infiltration, though. So maybe instead of king to f7, pawn f5 was better. Stop the king from coming to e4. Maybe that's what I should have done. Okay, well, it is what it is. Alright, if king d7, knight c5... Oh, I don't really achieve anything by retreating the king, do I? e4 is slightly interesting. If take, I can push f4. And if take, I can go here, but he can just give me a check and force me back. g5, take here, here, here. Knight d8 here, knight f7. g5, take. What about f4? I have to take coming to f5. e4, let's say. What if no? If h5, then h4. So let's say g5. h3. h5. And I'm just trying to force through a passed pawn as quickly as I can. So a4. g4. Take, 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 take. If king e4, I push. Horribly. I don't know what to think about that. f4, king f5 is interesting. e4 I don't think is good enough. I mean, trading is certainly not the way to go. If here, take, push. Just here. And if here, there's knight d7, and then I get kicked out. I can't move my knight, because then he'll take on c5 with check, and then win the a6 pawn. So my knight has to stay. I don't know if h5 does anything. Here. Yeah, this is a perpetual, though. I think f4 is the way I'm going to go. And just go all in. Wait, can he go king e4? Oh, no, I missed that. Ay, ay, ay. That's a really dumb move. I completely missed that you can go king e4. I only calculated knight c5. Ah, oh, Christ. That's not good. It's just setting up a blockade on the light squares. And I'm losing the pawn. That's really, really not good. c5 I can take. Knight takes, king takes. I have king d4, and I should win that position because king here, king here, king here. h5 take, here, push, here, push, here, push, push. And then I can stop the promotion. King here. Then I can run over with my king for those pawns. That should be winning. I think it's winning. b4, okay. Stops my knight from coming over. That was the whole idea. g4 maybe? g4, c5, king over, take. I think I'm throwing this. I think I'm throwing. h5, take. It's no good. g4, take. g3. That looks good. g4, take. I get the g5 square for the knight. If knight, sorry, king to f5. Pawn e4, then knight f4. I don't think that's good enough. b4 is very accurate. I mean, I have to try something, otherwise I just don't have moves. c5 might also be good. I just don't have... I mean, I can't calculate everything, but that probably wins. c5, king c4, king e5, pawn g3. White has to be careful, because if he takes my knight, then I win. And if he plays take and takes my knight, then I win. But you can go knight here. Knight g5. Pawn f4. Knight f3 doesn't work. I still think I'm losing there. I'm sure there's many ways for white to win this position. But yeah, I think back... Where was it? Back here, I think f5 had to be played. I think f5 was what I needed to go for to stop the king infiltration. I just completely missed the power of the king getting to e4 and the knight coming to b7 when my king was on e6. I completely missed that idea. It was very nice from my opponent. Okay, he takes. I find that somewhat surprising. Okay, so if here, only for the knight takes. If here, take. Here. I think I can survive that. I might actually be winning. Here. Push. Take. Push. If I push straight away, he takes here, right? So I need to start with pushing. I mean, 2 pawns beat a knight. So if the king takes on g5, then I push. If the king tries to come back, I take. Oh, wait, maybe you can do that. Oh. I completely missed that. I think this holds. And then I'm going to be down way too many pawns. Yeah, and then if I push, he just takes one of the pawns with the king. So take, king here. And then that's game over. This is excellent endgame technique from my opponent. But yeah, I completely missed king f4. Damn it. You just assume the knight has to move, but of course it doesn't. I mean, I think he can even go king e3 and it'd be winning, but yeah. This is just game over. I can resign. I'm down way too many pawns. That's really frustrating because we played such a good opening and just completely threw it in the endgame. I am absolutely sure... Wait, this is still okay? This is still okay, but f4 seems to be the mistake. This is going to take some analysis, but let's jump into it. Okay, so 88.4% accuracy for my opponent, 83.3% for us. Basically a perfect opening and middle game. I mean, opening accuracy was 99%, middle game accuracy was 97.7%. We just threw it in the end game. So, yeah, we have a Tartakower. c3, bishop f5, with the intention of trading the bishops. Bishop f4 is a move I've never seen, and bishop d6 is good against it. Take, bishop d3, take, castles. Here I was expecting knight to e2, which is the best move. Knight to f3 would just blunder rook e8 check. And I mean, white is apparently okay here, but, like, why would you volunteer for this? He castles, though. Queen d5 is best with a double attack. King b1. Interestingly, I think a3 is the best move. I thought this just created issues for white, though. If I were to go for some pawn storm, but apparently it's the best. Anyway, knight h3. Rook e8 is the best move to prepare a queen trade, which we do. And it's the only way to hold on to the advantage. The second best move is queen d5. And here, the game is equal after knight f4. And if we go for a queen trade now, then after take, knight h5, we're in a world of trouble. So, queen e4, take. Here I was expecting rook e1. And after take, we'd probably have to go king f8. If I go knight d7, rook here, I assume we can go for king f8 after rook d8. But it's slightly more complicated. But rook g3, knight d7, rook g1, g6, f3, rook e2. And we're just doing very, very well. I mean, this is just a perfect position. We're up a pawn. Rook e1 check is the best move, though. Followed by rook f1. Okay, and if rook g3, then... Oh, I didn't see that. We're going up 2 pawns here. If rook e2 counterattacking, we can go king f8, but we can also just take, and if this... Rook f4, rook d7, rook f2, if king d3, then rook b2 defending, if king b3... I mean, we just have easy promotion. Rook e3 is inaccurate. Rook f2, knight b6 is okay, but again, rook e1 is the best. I don't really understand why this makes a difference. Because I saw this idea, but then I was like, well, what's the point? I guess this is the point. And if king d3... Oh, a5, a4 looks really interesting. Okay. Knight b6, king c2. Knight d5 is again inaccurate. Apparently after the knight trade, this is a draw. So the engine wants pawn f5, and after king d2, knight c4, which I saw. But I thought my knight was just going to get booted out. But I guess it buys us time. Knight d6, the king comes back. Sorry, not rook e6, rook e7. And then what's the plan? Just g5? I thought if g5, then the knight can go to h5. Apparently that just doesn't matter. Oh, because if the knight goes to g3, it's just got no good moves. Okay. Alright, well, knight d3. b6 is a bit inaccurate because of c4. The engine here wants knight e3. I didn't even see this move. Because if this, then this would check. And if this, then I get to f5. Yeah, of course, of course. I missed that. I was too passive. But rook e6, rook e2. c5 is the mistake. I have to go rook d6, which I rejected on the basis of rook e7. Check here. Knight e6. I thought this could be played. Oh, the c5 check. I missed c5 check. And then in this position, f4, just g5, probably. And then this is going to be winning. No, apparently not. I'm an idiot. Okay, it's not even that simple. It's better to bring the king. And if white starts pushing, then now g5 is better. h4, king h5. And if king comes up, then I just promote. So c5 is the mistake. Take. It's better to play knight takes. Yeah, well, I suppose if we're pushing for a win, we take with the pawn, though. Knight c6. Engine wants e5, giving up this pawn. Not a very human thing to do, I've got to say. But again, the engine's looking for a draw. I'm looking for a win. Knight a5, e5, king e3. Engine wants knight e6 immediately. And if king here, then knight g5. If you infiltrate, you're probably going to lose. So king e3. But then it just wants to repeat. And if f5... Oh, well, then we just go back and we stop the infiltration. Also, we stop f4. Yeah, and here after knight b7, f5, king d3, f4 just loses. Apparently, I need to go g5. Well, that's one of the moves. And after knight c5, I thought that white could just draw after knight b7. Because if I come over here, then knight d8 followed by knight f7 is going to be a big problem. That's why I didn't play g5. But I think the engine just wants me to shuffle. Like king e6, knight d8, king f6. I suppose we have some life in the game here. This would be interesting. I probably should have gone for this, but... Yeah, after f4, I thought if knight takes and king f5, I had some interesting play. The engine isn't convinced, but I thought that after something like g5, a4, h5, h3, I could go for g4, and we could try to win this. King e4, f3, and white has to find knight d3. King g3, king e5. Oh, he's just going to give the knight up. And then, yeah, he's going to win. Okay. Well, king e4, though. g5. And I'm just running out of ideas. I try knight e6. But b4 is very, very... just a very good move. If knight takes, I thought I could go knight c5. And play for some kind of perpetual. But the problem is that the king can come to f5. And, I mean, you can't really take because the knight hangs, but the knight can move with check. So here, the engine just says knight b7, which, like, yeah, this is just losing. I think I was going to go h3, but I didn't realize this comes with check. So, that doesn't work. But b4, g4, I mean, it's not the best move, and I'm just trying to make something happen. Here, the engine wants knight f3. and if take, I can take back. Didn't consider this move, actually. And if h3, knight d2, knight e5, f3, knight d3, knight c4. I mean, I'm still losing. But yeah, I went f3, and after king g5, pawn e4, I figured that if the knight moves, then I win, right? Like, if knight f2, game over. But I completely missed king f4, which is the only move. I mean, you can throw in c5, because it comes with check. But the point is that king f4 will win the game. And yeah, I completely missed king f4, and here if I push, my pawn gets stopped. And that's the end of that. So that was a very interesting game. I'm really, really happy with how the opening went. The middle game was perfect. Getting into that rook and knight with a pawn up endgame was perfect. But from there, just navigating it horribly, completely misunderstanding the position. But you know, that's how we learn. That's how we learn. So tough loss, but that's chess. So it is what it is. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and learned a lot. If you want to see another game in the Caro Kann Tartakower variation, check out the video up here. And if you want to see the previous episodes of the speedrun, check out the playlist down there. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in one of those videos.